Hey, Tom, good job. All right, so welcome everybody to the session. We're very excited that everybody could be here, and we're as excited to have many of our alumni here, which is great, spanning lots and lots of time from the program, so that's kind of exciting. We're going to start off with Dr. Briskin's going to say a few words, and then I have some questions for the panelists, but if anyone here has a question for the panelists, please feel free to let us know. We're here for you to answer your questions, to give you a sense of what our program's about. Jessica, would you like to start?
Hi, everyone. I'm Dr. Briskin. I'm one of the faculty in the department. I teach a lot of our intro classes, so instructional design, intro to authoring, our visual design classes, LMS, and some of our other electives. But before we go over what our program and the different tracks, I was going to have everyone introduce themselves. So if all of our panelists don't mind introducing what year you graduated from the program and where you're currently working and actually where you're located. So I'm currently in Bloomsburg, Pennsylvania. So we can start with Rachel. You're kind of in my top corner and we can go around. So
hi, my name is Rachel Troy Chalk. I almost said Vasquez because I'm thinking about being in the program. I graduated in 2004, and I'm currently an assistant director at Ernst & Young in their America's Learning group.
Hi, everyone. My name is Rochelle Bone. I graduated in 2023, so I just graduated last May. And I am currently working for the Department of the Auditor General out of Harrisburg, but I'm fully remote and I'm located, my home base is like Mifflin County, Pennsylvania. So like an hour and a half from Bloom. And I went to undergrad at Bloom.
All right, my name is Ramesh Muthukumarda. I actually graduated back in 2015. It's almost like 10 years now. So currently working at University of Miami. I did the program actually in person, but right now I'm working remotely, living in Little Rock, Arkansas. Yeah.
Hi, my name is Mike Smith. I live in just outside Bloomsburg, Pennsylvania. Lived here my whole life, actually. And I graduated in December of 2022, so just about a year ago. And I've been working as an instructional designer at Viva Systems in a little group we call Learn GXP.
My name is Victor Lazaro Rivera. I am a graduate of 2023, just last spring. I'm currently senior instructional designer for a small learning and training company that gets contracts with the federal government, and my home base happens to also be in Washington, D.C.
And Dr. Kopp, do you want to introduce yourself?
I should. Hey, I'm Dr. Carl Kopp. I'm a professor here at Bloomsburg University. I've been here since 1997. So I started teaching when I was 2, and very excited to have everybody here and get everybody's perspective. So thanks everybody for joining us, and thank you to the alum and the panel, and so excited to have such a span of experience. So Dr. Briskin?
Sure. So before we get started and we have a ton of questions for our panel, we did want to go over the 2 different tracks and the concentrations that are within our program. So I am also the graduate coordinator. So if you have any questions, you can always email me in the chat box, or you can email me after. So in our program, we have 2 different concentrations, which are located here in the bottom left-hand corner. So we have our learning experience designer as well as our instructional technology specialist. The main difference between the 2 are the different areas or domains that you want to work within. So our learning experience designer really primarily focuses on those that want to work either in higher education or the corporate sector, whereas the instructional technology specialist works within a K through 12 school district. So one that works within or works in a classroom, or one that works with teachers in a classroom. We also have 2 certificates. So you can start with a certificate, or a lot of times, if you're in the master's program, you can add their certificate along with your degree. So you would just have your electives in those different areas for the certificate. So our 2 certificates are the game design certificate as well as the e-learning specialist. Both, no matter what track you do, it is 10 classes plus an internship or a thesis. I will say about 90 to 95% of our students do an internship for that real world experience, depending on what your plans are after the program. If you are a full-time student, it does typically take 3 semesters, so a fall, a spring, a summer. If you are part-time, that is about 1 to 2 classes a semester, and that will take a little bit longer. But a full-time student is taking 3 classes per semester. So that is the difference between the 2 different tracks. Here, I think most of we'll ask that question, what tracks individuals were. But we previously we did recently go through a change. The corporate track was the learning experience designer, and then our education track was our instructional technology specialist. So that's a little bit about our 2 different tracks as well as our certificates. And if you do have any questions, again, you can use the chat box and we can dig a little bit into that deeper in our session here today.
Well, great. Thanks, Dr. Rochka. Awesome. So I want to start with, I know I sent everybody a group of questions to go over, but I'm gonna go off the script right now. So my question is, how do you explain instructional design to like your in-laws? So I'm always struggling, like, what do you do? What is it? Yeah, how does that work? So let's go ahead, Victor, if that's okay, we'll start with you. And how do you explain what you do for a living?
I make it easy for people to learn new things.
I like it.
It's the simplest way I can put it, that the layman or the person who has no idea what instructional design is, if you're in a corporation or in higher education, any type of institution, and you need people to learn something new, there's a specific way and design that you do this that's efficient and effective for them to get whatever information they need. And that's pretty much how I've explained it to. I don't have in-laws, but yeah, I've explained it to people who have never heard of instructional design.
Yeah. Well, first of all, you're a lucky man, Victor. Let's go with so Ramesh, how do you explain to folks?
Yeah, I agree with Victor on that. So can you hear me? Yeah, you can hear me. In my case, like as you know, I work with the higher education institutions. So what I try to tell you is, like, when I go home, back home to my country of origin, also they ask, because it's a new subject for them too. So I say, like, I create classes online, so whatever the class, that is the simplest way I can put it for them. So they understand a biology class, right? But they don't know understand how it's fully done in an online setting, even before the Zoom was a thing, right? So so that's how I would explain. I would create the course online on an online platform, so they can take the class at the same time if they wish. If not, they can take at their own time, because people don't understand asynchronous and synchronous terms, right? So that's how I would explain. Just I'll do it. I create the course online so they can, you don't have to go to class. You can take it over the internet from anywhere in the world. So that seems to be helping me to get the message across.
Oh, fantastic! Thanks, Ramesh.
Yeah,
And
of course.
yeah, it's no matter where you are in the world, you have to explain what instructional design or instructional technology happens to be. So Mike, how do you, being a more recent graduate, explain what the concept is?
Yeah, so my function is entirely e-learning. So I do everything online training. So my go-to has typically been when they ask, what is that? I say, well, have you ever taken online training? Because it's kind of a universal experience at this point. Like when I worked at a grocery store, I had to do harassment training and all the onboarding stuff. So I tell people I do that and try to make it not suck. That's my goal. And they
Okay,
usually get the
great.
point
Yeah.
across. They've done it before. They understand.
I think that's a good goal. Yeah. Thanks, Mike. Rochelle?
Yeah, I'm gonna have to piggyback right off of Mike because I say something quite similar. I mean, we want people to join the program, but typically I say, I'm like, have you ever taken, like, you know, the trainings that everybody mandates you to take, that you probably don't love? We try to make them better. So I'm like, I'll do my best to try to, you know, make them a little bit more fun.
Great, fantastic. Yeah, we do actually make them better than your typical Zoom
Yes.
and PowerPoint slide presentation. So we try to make online learning an experience rather than just something that you have to do. So great. And Rachel?
I love this. Okay, so first of all, I do have to call out that my cousin is in the audience. Hey,
Ah,
Val. Anyway,
awesome.
so I say something similar to Mike. So I ask them if they've taken it, and I say, you know, typically my job is to make that, but better. But I talk usually I talk about how I know how the human brain works and how adult brains function and how we learn, and I just apply that to someone else's knowledge about whatever, right? So so that we make the best use of someone's time in the class. When they leave, they retain it. They actually can do something with it, as opposed to just kind of taking in a bunch of stuff that they maybe forget at some point.
Yeah, fantastic. Thanks. So that gives you a little bit of a range or thoughts about, you know, how we answer the question, what is instructional technology? So sometimes it's called learning experience design, instructional design, all kinds of different words and terms. But basically, it means designing and developing instruction, whether it's online, whether it's face to face. So the next question then I have is uh, what did you learn in the program? So and what I mean there is, what are some things that really struck out to you? Like, oh, I didn't think I'd ever learn this, or I didn't know how I would do this, or that kind of thing. And I think I'll start with Rochelle. And she looks like she's very deep in thought on the question. And so, what did you learn, Rochelle, when you were in the program?
Well, I was deep in thought because I was thinking I have an education background, so I was like, we definitely did learn how the brain works. I learned a lot of that in my undergrad, but we also learned a lot of it in the master's program. We learned a decent amount of theory in the master's program, and as well as just the whole instructional design process. So it's really a program that's very thorough, and you don't need any type of background. Like, you can have any type of background coming into it. Like, I work with someone at the auditor who's actually a CPA who transitioned into an e-learning specialist. So yeah, I learned a decent amount of, you know, just everything. Um, I got to work on some projects too, which I'm sure we'll talk about later. But you know, it was really like taking a product or making a product the whole way through, which was is something that I hear not a lot of other master's programs have, is actually working on a tangible end product, which was really cool.
Oh, fantastic. That's great. Thanks, Rochelle. Mike, what was your experience?
Yeah, one thing I'd say is that it was going through the program, it allowed you to dabble sort of in a lot of different areas of instructional design. I think there's so many different directions you can go. So, like, we learned about LMS, we learned about authoring, we learned about theory, we learned about gamification, all kinds of different things that gave me a way to intelligently talk to my peers about things and to have better ideas of the whole scope of kind of the job function. And then because of the certificates or you could choose what classes you took, it allowed you to really concentrate on what interested you the most. Like, the designers and the developers would go more authoring or website development, and then the writers would go a different direction. So you kind of got to do what you really liked, but at the same time got to get your feet wet in every aspect of the industry, sort of. So then that would also allow you to, you know, find what direction you want to go after you're done. Because when you're done, you're done. You can't take any more. You can't keep going and just be a student forever, really. So I think that was the biggest takeaway I had from what I learned in the program, was a little bit of everything, but then a concentration of what really interested me. And I mean, that's what got me where I am today. So it was a great experience.
Great, fantastic. Thanks, Mike. Ramesh?
Thank you. the thing mute. Sorry. Yeah, in my case, so I pretty much learned everything from this instructional design from this program because when I came to the program, I did not know anything about instructional design. I knew I need to start something different because I was a business admin grad. I had a business admin background and marketing minor, and I also had a mass comm minor. So it was a different. The typical thing to go for is an MBA, but I chose a different route. So I'm glad I did this, but because I was able to learn a lot of things. Because maybe my background with mass comm might have helped a little bit because I had a creative background, so it may have helped a little bit. But the instructional design I learned quite a bit because theory, yes, every program you go to in a different school or a different program, you learn instructional design, basic instructional design or advanced instructional design. But we had the opportunity to work with multimedia like nowhere else. I think that definitely helped me to get where I am right now, because whether it's video editing or creating graphics with Illustrator, or even working with authoring tools such as Articulate, Storyline, or Captivate, we did it all right in our classes. So when you go to the workforce, then I realized, like a lot of people at that time, at least, I don't know how it's now, most of the people who came to entry level jobs at the time did not have those skills, so that helped me definitely land a job much easier than my other candidates at the same time. So those things, like Mike said, we got to learn a little bit of everything. So maybe you're not an expert in graphic design, or maybe not you're a fully fledged video editor, right? But a little bit of everything. So when you go to the workforce, you really can, a little bit of everything. You can advise your superiors about each of everything, even a little, because So those things actually helped me in the program actually.
Great, thanks,
Yeah.
fantastic, Ramesh. And I think that the breadth of the program is really kind of one of its strengths. Kind of as a number of you had said. Victor, how about you?
Well, I'll give a little context. I started the program while I was living in China, teaching in China as well. And the thing that really helped me actually in my teaching, and before I even transitioned full time into instructional design, was learning the theory, because there's nothing random about the way a lesson or a learning experience is structured. And I think this program really gave me the structure of how to present information, how to collect information from the students or the learners to make sure what it is I'm teaching is effective and they're getting the things that I want them to get by the end of it, of course. So aside from the technical stuff, learning the software and things like that, the theory was big for me.
Great, fantastic. So, we do in the program have the tech side and the theoretical side, and bring them both together so that you can be a well-rounded contributor to the field. Rachel, what was your experience?
Oh, I agree with a lot of what was said. I won't repeat. What I will add, though, is, and this is something that we tell people when they ask. My husband also went through the program.
Yeah, that's
I
no
think,
guarantee. We're not guaranteed that. That's
yeah, I didn't meet him
there's
there.
great people in the program, but we can't make any promises.
But we like to say that we learned how to learn. So, the technology is always changing. There's always different tools, right? When I started in 2003 in the program, I was learning authorware. And now there's Captivate and Rise and all these other programs, right? And I think that we came out knowing that things are going to change. The theory will remain the same. The way our brains work, that's going to remain the same, but we can grow and shift and leverage just that continuous ability to grow our own selves and learn new tools and new ways of doing things.
Great, fantastic. Yeah, in this field, you always have to be learning. If you're sitting still, you're behind. So I thought we'd just take a minute. Dr. Briskin, do you just want to talk a little bit about the kinds of classes that we have in the program so people can kind of understand that? And also, if you're listening and you have a question for any one of the panelists, feel free to go ahead and let us know. We'd love to answer some of your questions. Dr. Briskin.
Yeah, so depending on what track you do, there is some crossover, so I can share that again. So if you are in the learning experience designer track, there is a little bit more of an emphasis on the authoring programs. So for example, you'll take a class called Intro to Authoring and Advanced Authoring, whereas in the Instructional Technology Specialist track, you'll take a class called Tech Apps and a Research course. Those are two of the differentiators between the two. But across both of them, you will take an Intro to Instructional Design class, you'll take an Advanced Instructional Design class. There's a capstone class in the Learning Experience Designer track called Managing E-Learning Projects, where you have a request for a proposal. And then the capstone course in our Instructional Technology Specialist track is the tech, what is that one called? It's not my tongue, but there's another different capstone course for our Instructional Technology Specialist track. The other classes that cross over between the two are our web design course. And then from both tracks, you get to pick three different electives. The electives are classes like we have a VR AR course. This winter, Dr. Kopp introduced a AI course. We have a visual design course, an LMS course for our education track, a social media class. We also have some other electives in gamification, instructional game design. We have a ton of different ones depending on the areas that you want to go into. So as you know, Mike even talked about, if there's something that you are interested in, you can start to specialize in different areas, and that's where the certificates come into play. So again, there are specializations within the concentrations, but then there are some crossover in the classes that you do take based on the tracks that you are in. So we do have some questions. I see. Can the alumni who did the concentrations also speak to more in-depth or required courses and electives they chose?
Yeah, so Julia was wondering if any of you who took the certificates could talk also about what courses were required and what electives that you took in those courses.
So I can start us off here, and then if anyone wants to jump in. So for the e-learning certificate, it is for the e-learning specialist certificate, it's 4 classes. So the 4 classes are Intro to Authoring, Online Course Design, and then 2 electives. So if you're in the e-learning, the learning experience designer track, it's really easy to add on because you would just have to take the online course design as one of your electives, and then it's easily added on. If you're in the instructional technology specialist track, it would be 2 of your 3 electives that you would have to gear towards that elective. If you're interested in the instructional game design cert, that one is 5 classes. That one is the Intro to Authoring course, Advanced Authoring, Instructional Game Design, Gamification, and Scenario. If you're in the Learning Experience Designer track, all 3 of your electives would be geared towards that certificate because you're already taking 2 of those as required courses. So as a Learning Experience Designer, you can gear your electives towards either one of those. With the Instructional Technology Specialist, it's a little bit different because you have to take that authoring that you're not getting from the Learning Experience Designer track. Did any of our alumni take either of those certificates?
Or even a couple of the courses that you might want to talk about, the branching
I did
scenario.
the e-learning specialist.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me. And the best thing was any questions that I had the entire time, I would email Dr. Briskin and she would take care of everything for me. It was fantastic and kind of laid out all the courses that I needed to do. Like she said, it was very much, these are the courses you need to get the graduate degree. And then if you do 1 or 2 different courses, you can get a certificate too. It makes total sense. and it was also in my area of interest, and it's super easy. I mean, to make it happen. I mean, the work is, you know, not super easy, but to get that certificate on top of your degree is the way to go.
Great, thanks, Mike. Did anybody take any of the courses in their certificate? Like, did anybody take branching scenario? And can you just, maybe talk a little bit about that, or the gamification class, or a multimedia specialist class, just to give, I think, Julia, a little bit of in-depth, like, what's a class like? Let's do that. So let's start with, we haven't started with, I think Rachel's been last each time, if I remember correctly. So pick a class and just explain what it's like as a student to, be involved with the class.
So I think some of the classes have changed because it's been like 20 years. But to be fair, that's why I'm not volunteering to talk about any of those specific classes. But I will say, and I think this touches some of the next question that's in there as well. I think that all of the courses have a component of hands-on. So just like adult learning theory, the best way for us to learn is through experience, right? And so almost all of the courses, I can't think of any that didn't. There is a component where you're doing actual work, whether it's fictional or actual work for someone that they're going to use. And I think that makes a huge difference because you're not just listening, you're actually applying everything that you're learning as you're going through the coursework.
Thanks.
Can I add to that very
Please.
quickly? I specifically chose this program because of the hands-on component. There's a lot of programs that are just, you take the course, you do an exam, but there's no using the software, there's no presentations, there's no projects, there's no internship attached to it. So if you're concerned whether or not you'll get a chance to actually use the software and learn the technical aspects, rest assured, you'll have plenty of opportunity.
Yeah, Dr. Khan, may I add something to that as well?
Please.
Actually, I totally agree with what Victor said because having the hands-on part is the most important. Like I explained previously, when I started the job, my first job, the people who came to my teammates who were entry-level people as well, back in 10 years ago, they did not have the skills. They did not use the software that needed to use in the job context. So at this program, in addition to the theory, every class had a practical component, and the beauty of it is, like at the end of the program, you have a portfolio with projects already curated towards the end, because the reality is when you go to the end of the program, you need to have a portfolio website of some sort to give to your when you have to attach to your resume. Most of the employers request that. I mean, we hire people. I ask for at least a link with few projects just to see what they can perform, what they can do. So in this program, at the end of the program, you really already have it. All you have to do is put it together and create a little website and use it as your portfolio. So that's something I've never seen in other programs. Even to date, I talk with my colleagues. They don't come with that. So it's very interesting. I just want to point that out.
Great. No, I appreciate that, Ramesh. Yeah.
And then,
oh, go ahead, please.
I was gonna say, I wanted to bring these up. I think it gives a better representation of the different tracks. So this is the learning experience designer track, just to give you a visual representation of how it's laid out. So those required courses that I was talking about are the instructional design, the intro to web, intro to authoring, multimedia. And then those advanced courses, the advanced authoring, advanced ID, managing e-learning projects, and then your internship or thesis. And then you'll see that list of 3 electives that you'll get to take compared to the instructional technology specialist. Again, the crossover is that instructional design, multimedia, intro to web. But the differences are the tech planning. That's the one that's your capstone course. And then the tech apps research, again, you'll have the crossover, the tech, the advanced instructional design, an internship or thesis, and then the same list of electives that you get to choose from. You'll see here with the instructional game design cert, those classes from your electives that you get to choose from are listed here. So that gamification, instructional game design, scenario, intro to authoring, advanced authoring. Same with your e-learning cert. You have 2 required classes and a list of electives that you get to choose from. So that's how, if you gear your electives towards these specific areas, you can merge your degree with a certificate.
Great. Julia had a clarification on her on the question, which was, hey, I'm already in instructional design. I probably don't want to get my master's degree. What would it be like if I didn't do the master's program but just did the certificates?
So you would still apply, it's the same application, but you would just apply for one or either certificate. They are college level credit certificates. Later on, we actually have a lot of people that start with their certificate and then decide to go on to the master's program. So all your credits towards your certificate do apply towards your master's as well if you decide to further it. But we do have a lot of individuals that are currently in the field that start out with just a certificate that often then potentially move on or just do the certificate. So if you are currently in the field and you just want to go after a certificate, you can do that. So when you do your application, you would just apply for the e-learning specialist or the instructional game design cert. So when you do apply, there's options from the drop-down menu that you would select either the master's program or one of the certificates. And then if you're doing the master's program, you do select which track you're applying to.
Great, thanks, Dr. Briskin. So another question was, did anybody here have a career before instructional design? And then how do you feel the program helped you secure your first position in the field?
Yeah, I'd be happy.
I can start.
Yeah, I was gonna say, Mike, not to put you on the spot. I know you were doing some sales before the program, and then I guess Rochelle.
Yeah, a little bit different. So I graduated from Bloomsburg with a degree in communication in 2012, and for 10 years I was in sales. All different kinds of sales. I sold travel, I sold swimming pools, I sold all kinds of stuff. And I decided to take a complete, left turn and change my career and actually get a career and do something. So that's when I started doing the program. And I think in the sales career, it really helped me with interpersonal communication, relationship building, talking to different kinds of people about different kinds of things. And I think that was sort of, in a weird way, a natural transition to instructional design, learning basically how to give a message to a very different group of people. So there is a lot of carryover. I think there's a lot of different careers that you could have some kind of mesh with. But yeah, for 10 years I did sales, and now I have 1 year under my belt as an instructional designer. And then to answer one of the other questions, I did work full time while getting my master's degree. So for 2 years, it did take me 2 years. I did some semesters I did 1 class, some I did 2, and some very fun semesters I did 3 classes. So it was basically work all day, class at night, and then projects in the other nights and weekends. It all worked out just fine. I did not tell my sales employer what I was doing until I said I'm gone and I have a new career, and I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't change it anyway. It was great.
Great, thanks, Mike. And Rochelle, I think you had your story as well.
Yeah, so I have a background in education, which I already touched on a little bit previously. But I think that helped me so much. You do not need a background in education whatsoever, but I know that there are a lot of teachers kind of looking for another avenue to go down, and instructional design is kind of I would recommend it to anyone. I love it so much, and it's definitely different than being in a school and being in the classroom. I start work at 7:30 or whenever, and then I end work whenever I'm supposed to, and I don't think about it again until the next day. So it's within my contracted hours. I don't have to think much about it outside of work, and I just think it's a really great field for teachers to get into as well.
Great, thanks, Rochelle. There's a question. I think Victor might be in a good position to answer this one. It's the question is, with the program being online, how are you able to, network with faculty and with peers? Did you feel isolated? What was that experience like in terms of, because it was online and you couldn't, see people face to face? How did you become part or feel part of the learning community?
Most, if not all of the courses had some sort of discussion board where the topics of the previous class were discussed, or we had some homework that we had to work together. And even outside of that, there were projects where we were put in teams to work together. So with me being in another time zone, waking up at 6 a.m. for 6 p.m. class, it was a challenge, but being in groups, working with teams, being able to talk to your professors and teachers, it made it much, much easier for me. I didn't really feel too much strain other than just drinking 3 cups of coffee like right away when I wake up. But I really didn't feel any isolation. The collaboration aspect of each course made it very easy for me.
Great, fantastic. Thanks, Victor. So this question is for how do I put this? Alumni who have graduated a little earlier in time. And I wanted to know, so you've dealt with a lot of colleagues, Ramesh and Rachel, and through the years you've seen what you were what your schooling was like, and then you see some other people in the field. So can you draw maybe some advantages, if there were any, from this program that you saw over in your career so far?
You want to go first, Ramesh, or should I?
Sure, of course. Yeah. Like I think I touched on this a little bit before. Definitely, not to put any other school, below or anything like that, but definitely, like I explained, having that practical aspect, having a practical component to each class actually gave me definitely a advantage, especially early in the career, because most of I mean, if you're smart enough, you can gather experience after you work in the workforce for like several years. But when you go to the when you start off first, you're coming off of, you don't have a lot of experience. So you're coming off of a program, and with minimal experience, most of the people don't have anything to show, right? But I was able to show my skills, because the practical hands-on experience, because most of the positions, they will give you something to do right away, whether it's working on an LMS or I work for a higher institution during my internship, so I had to work on Blackboard, right? So I had to learn Blackboard real quick, but we worked on LMSs during classes, different classes, so it was definitely very easy for me. There was only a couple of days of training, and I picked up right away. So that was definitely helpful. And like I said before, having the practical of each class, almost each class, there's a practical component. That was very, very helpful. And I don't think most of the programs offer that that part. I mean, they mentioned, let's say, as a storyline is Captivate is a standard industry standard authoring ware, right, today, right? So they may be mentioned that in a class, or maybe they've introduced the software, but we worked on that software for like days, if not months. We decode the errors. There were errors in the courses, so we fixed them for hours and hours until we get what we needed. So that is a different perspective. If you don't really work on that kind of stuff, when you go to workplace, I mean, if you have to work on that kind of stuff at the workplace without having that background, that's a little hard, at least at the first stage of your career. So having that from the program definitely helped me.
Great, perfect.
I'll add three things. One is just generally, and I kind of touched on this earlier, a mindset. So I think we come in ready to do all of it, any of it. We're not afraid of a challenge, because by the end of the program, we have done all of it, and we, every aspect of the work that we do or could do. And the level of effort that we've put into our courses, I always say, like, after RFP, you can do anything. Through RFP, you're fine. Like, you're
Right.
golden. So yeah, you come to the table, you've already got experience. you've experienced enough that you're not necessarily afraid to just jump in on something. The other thing, we're pretty well rounded. So I think, even if you do focus, like I focus more on development and I wanted to be a developer, and that's what I did for a long time. But it was really easy for me to shift into project management for a while. And then I shifted into leadership for a while. And then I went back to being a designer. And that's what I'm doing now. Just purely design and not anything else. And it has been easy to transition into all those roles because I had the background, enough of a basis, and then also just like the confidence to know that I can figure it out. Like, this is what we do. The other thing I'll mention is we're really like a kind of a family. Like, I hate to say it like that, but like, and this is everyone shaking their heads because they're like, yep. Like, once you're in the program, there's just like, I don't know what to call it, community. Like you meet another MSIT alum and you're like, oh, and it's instant connection. It's instant, friendship, because we've all kind of gone through this program and we understand that we have a different skill set. We're a different breed than some of the other designers that you might see. And I think that's awesome. I like to refer to us as like unicorns because we can like do anything. Magical rainbows.
Yeah,
I have a lot of rainbows in my back. But yeah, that's a couple things. Oh, and also like the alumni group, I think makes us really special as well because we are super supportive. So like there were times in my career where I was trying something new, I was going into a new role and I was kind of floundering, and it was so easy for me to pick up the phone and to find someone or like hop on the Facebook group or whatever it used to be, Yahoo group or and connect and get that support. And I have lost count of how many alumni I've hired. So I have at least 3 on my team right now. So it's yeah.
Yeah, no, fantastic. So part of that value and that feeling of camaraderie comes a little bit from our graduate assistant program. I don't know how many of you, could you just raise your hand if you're a grad assistant? Almost everybody, okay, but not Victor, that's okay. Dr. Briskin, could you just explain a little bit about what the graduate assistantship program is? And then maybe 1 or 2 of you could tell about your experience as a grad assistant.
So there is an option for grad assistants. Depending on the semester, we have between 8 to 10, sometimes more, sometimes less. We have options. Most often it's 10-hour GAs. Sometimes there's 20-hour GAs. So as a 10-hour GA, you'll work for us for 10 hours per week. As a 10-hour GA, we will pay for 2 of your 3 classes. So that means that you do have to be a full-time student. So that is taking 3 classes. So again, we'll be paying for 2 of your 3 classes, and then you will also get a small stipend. So that is paid, I believe, bi-weekly, that you will get a stipend from the university. As working for the department, we partner with many different organizations. So for example, we're working with PCAR, Pennsylvania Coalition Against Rape, developing different modules right now. We're working for a different company called Shatterbox. We've actually been working with them for over 1.5 years, developing a year-long training. We are on, I think, group 4 now. They have it in 4 different parts. So we're coming close to the end of this project, which it's been a long one, which is really, really great. So we have 8 to 10 students. So you'll be in smaller groups with those students working on those projects. They are real world projects that are going right into the organizations. So you'll be on client calls, working with them, working in partnerships with the individuals from those organizations. So you do get that experience of what it's like to create a project plan, to create deadlines, to know what it's like to talk to clients. You'll create those deliverables. Every project that you do work on, though, is mentored by myself and Dr. Kopp. And we also do have instructional designers that work through it. And then we have, if you are newer into the program, we also have our senior students, ones that have been graduate assistants before, that will help mentor you through that. So that is a little bit about the graduate assistant program. I know that we have some students that were part of that. So I don't know if you want to talk about your experiences as graduate assistants. Oh, you're on mute. And I'll quickly just say
Rochelle,
the
do you want to
difference,
start? Or
yeah, the
Mike?
difference between a 20-hour and a 10-hour is that you just get a larger stipend because you're working 20 hours versus 10 hours. Most often we are providing 10-hour GAs versus 20 hours.
And it's a competitive process too.
Yeah, you do have to apply.
Not everyone.
Yeah, and the other thing I will say, so they are selected pretty early. You do have to be an accepted student into the program to apply for the graduate assistant. They are selected about a semester prior to. So the earlier you apply, so for example, we already have ours selected for the springtime. We will start accepting applications around February for the spring, and then we'll be selecting them in March. So we do select them pretty early just because you do have to go through fingerprinting and there's a whole process through the graduate office because it does take a little bit of a time to get all that stuff done. So it does happen about a semester prior to that you would start working for us.
Can I chime in first? You mind?
Sure.
So I had both the experience of being a GA, but also leading the GAs for not quite a year. But I will say from an experience perspective, you get to see your own project that you're involved with, but you get to see what everyone else is doing, and there's a lot of collaboration. At least when I was there, there was a lot of collaboration on the project. So like we know who is good at what naturally, but like you might get put on a project that you're going to be good at, but there's going to be some stretch sometimes, and we would meet weekly as a group, talk about our projects, and it would give us the opportunity to kind of like support each other. Oh, I know how to do that. I've done that before. Let me show you. And then, you can do the rest. So it's super collaborative. You learn a lot from each other. And also walk away with that much more to put on your resume, portfolio, references, things like that. Because these are actual projects with actual clients out there. And some of them are big names, even the ones that aren't, there's still great references for you, regardless of the size of the company.
And it's the same process now. All GAs are remote, but we do have something where you have to be available during the day because we have rooms that you go into so that you are working with the other GAs on the project. So you do have to be available during that day. So again, it's that collaborative process so that you can work with those team members that are working on the same project. If you have questions, you can work together. We pop in the room. So if you need help from us as your advisors, we can help you as well.
Great, and I think Rochelle and Mike were GAs.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So I started out as a 10-hour GA, and I worked on, I want to say my first semester, I worked on a project with Penske, which was really cool because Penske is like a huge company, and like, you're all over the US and you're seeing Penske trucks. And so that was really cool for me to work on that project. And then later on, I was a GA for all of my semesters. And later on, I got to move up to a 20-hour GA and have a little bit more like project management experience, which is, it was such, like, I can't explain the experience. It's like I'm coming out, like I went to grad school right after I graduated undergrad. So coming out, like having, managed 2 or 3 projects already under my belt, and like they were like large scale projects, obviously with the help of Dr. Briskin, of course, but it's like hard to describe because I feel like I have so much more experience than, this is like my first entry level job, but I'm, ready to rip and tear into other stuff that, yeah. So, but I would work my 20 hours I think I would do like 10 of them in the GA room, or I think if you have to do all 10 in the actual rooms.
6 out of 10 if you're a 10-hour GA.
Yeah, and it was flexible with the like the hours. It was whenever I was there. You have to pick between like a certain, but for example, like I worked another job, I just, coordinated with my hours. Yeah, but I got a ton of hands-on experience. Got to sit in client meetings, which is huge, just to see how like it actually functions, like the more, technical side of things. Communicating is a huge one that definitely you're working on your interpersonal skills, which Mike was saying earlier, which, the more help you can get with that, I feel like the better. Especially being in this industry, if you can, manage projects and actually like be developing as well, it makes you like sort of a triple threat. So you're very marketable after you complete your GA.
Great, thanks, Rochelle. And just quickly, Julia asked if you were able to transition into different roles with the same employer, or did you change jobs to get to where you needed to be in the field?
Interesting.
Back to Mike and GA.
So that was for me, right? So it was both. So I went from different roles in different employers, but like when I was at KPMG, I came in as a developer and I went to project management, and then I went to team leadership, all within the same. And then my next role was at a nonprofit, and I came in as a instructional designer and then became a team leader there. So both. I'm happy to chat more. Hopefully that answers your question.
No, I think that's good. I think that kind of shows that you can move up I mean, it depends on the size of the organization, of course, but you can move up within an organization, and you can also then switch jobs or organizations as well.
On EY, I started high and I've moved down. Still getting paid fine, but I actually took a step back because of my kids, and I wanted to be more like present and less at work, and so I was able to do that as well.
Yeah, that's very nice. That's early in your career, you don't understand how important that is, but later on, that becomes a really important. And if you're a valued employee, you're able to do that, right? A lot of organizations don't want you to do that, but if you're valued, they want to keep you. Mike, so talk about being a GA, but also Brandon asked if you had any tips that you would like to give in order to be successful as a new student. I'm going to ask everybody that as we kind of wrap up, but Mike, I want to give you a chance to talk about being a GA.
Yeah, perfect. So next to the internship that's required, the GA program was my favorite part of the entire program. I was a GA for one semester, and I was a little skeptical at first. I didn't really know what to expect, but I knew I wanted to do it. So it was kind of crazy going into it, where the first meeting, it was like, hey, guess what? You're working with Penske, like Rochelle did. You're working with the trucking company, and they need an introductory course on the history of the company. So you're going to do that tomorrow. And it was like the first real, almost on the job training. It was like real job experience, because this is a real company. You go outside, you see, Penske's the real deal. And it was sort of like, this is it. Like, it was sort of a legitimizing everything that we were doing. And it gave you a real world experience of, what is my job going to look like? What can my day-to-day actually be? And that's exactly what the GA program gave, was the real taste of kind of what it's like, with talking to clients and collaborating with students and working together. It was a great experience for that.
Great.
To answer, sorry, your other question about any recommendations I would give for the program, I would say the most important thing that I would say is start your portfolio early. My thought was sort of, once I have these skills, I'm going to then develop these things in all my free time. That didn't happen. So throughout all the courses, you're going to be doing projects along the way. Every single course has a project, has something that you can show for. It's not just a test on paper. It's not just a grade in the book. You have a tangible piece that you can then save and give to employers later. So I would say, as soon as you start, save everything. Think about that in the projects that you develop. Like when I developed the website, I had no idea what to develop it on. If I had, maybe thought a little better, I could have started my website as my portfolio website. So start that early. Take everything that you can and make it into your portfolio, because you have to do it anyway. You might as well show off with it.
Yeah, great advice. Thanks, Mike. So let's go to Ramesh. What tips or advice would you give to be successful in the program?
Yeah, I have to piggyback on Mike on that as well, because like I mentioned, having that practical piece, especially when you're going into the workforce as an entry-level employee, that is very important, because you have to show some there's you have to show something that you've done. So as you go through the classes, collect your piece, whatever. So that gives you motivation to do well on your project as well, because that'll end up becoming your portfolio piece, right? So might as well put some effort and do a good job on it. You'll get a good grade as well as a piece for the portfolio. So that way, by the end of the program, you will have a good website with good portfolio pieces to share with your potential employees. So I think that you can kill two birds from that one stone there, right? So you get a good grade for the class, and then you have a portfolio piece. So I think that's the main thing if you graduate, because like Mike said, you definitely have to have something to show off, because every employer will ask for a portfolio link for portfolio, whether it's a video or something you will have to provide. So might as well have a good, nice little WordPress site or some website done for you. That way you'll be better prepared for apply for jobs.
Great, thanks, Ramesh. And also, Ramesh, did you go to DevLearn?
I did.
I
know.
did.
Yes. So you open up that whole world for us. So we keep going for the my first time was 2014 DevLearn. So after that, I keep going every single, not every year, but every now and then I go there, and to other conferences too, because it's very important to go to conferences so you network and find new things. So thank you for that.
Yeah. So just real quick, every year there's an industry conference called DevLearn, and our students compete there against other students and other schools. And we have won the best student project, I think 7 years in a row. And
Nice.
this year we also won best non-vendor category. And that meant our student was up against everybody, people in companies, everybody but vendors. And
Nice.
she was able to pull it off. So we're very, very excited about that. And we're running out of time, so I'm a little rushed, but Victor, can you talk a little bit about what advice or tips you would give for someone, especially since you were out of country at the time that you started? What kind of insights do you have?
Besides the typical, pay attention to the deadlines and, typical things to do well in a class, I would say once you've gotten into the first semester where you learn a little theory and you learn a little technical skills, I'm not going to say apply to jobs, but see what kind of jobs are out there, see what's changing in the landscape, so that you could choose the correct courses and maybe ask the right questions so that you are prepared. Like Dr. Kopp, I didn't know, but I just heard that you started an AI course, and I've been seeing a lot of jobs related to AI writer, or someone who has the skills to use AI coupled with instructional design. So the biggest thing is, of course, do your homework, complete your projects, but keep an eye on the industry. Take a look at what's out there while you're still in the course, so you can be better prepared once you finish.
Yeah, great. No, that's great advice. Always look out in the field, see what's going on. So Rachel and then Rochelle.
I'd add quickly, just if you're not sure, ask. So don't wait until things are almost due, or I'm saying that because I also taught but in the program, but a lot of us are juggling a lot in the program. So whether you're working or you're doing it online or you've got kids or whatever, the staff, your fellow students, they're there to support you. So don't wait, because if you have the question, there are probably other people that have the question too. And so take advantage of that network that's there. And yeah, that's what I would say. That's what I would add to what they've already chimed in on.
Yes, thank you. Rochelle?
So my biggest piece of advice is get your classmates' phone numbers or like some type of contact, because we are all online. I always say, I might not know how to do it, but I know someone who knows how to do it. So I'm kind of trying to go like a consulting route now, and that's kind of my mentality. I'm like, I might not be able to make that, but I know someone who can make that, and I will, connect the dots. So get your classmates' phone numbers or some type of, whatever they're comfortable with.
Great, perfect. Thanks, Rochelle. Appreciate that. So I want to thank the panel. You've done a wonderful job. So it's just about 8 o'clock now. There's a couple more questions. Dr. Briskin and I will probably stick around and answer that about the thesis track. But I just want to thank the panelists. Rachel, to go back to what you said, I think, I'm very biased, but I think there is a community of alumni from Bloomsburg. There's a certain bond as you look across this group here, going back many years in terms of being involved with the program, still willing to, at a moment's notice, come and be a panel member. We certainly appreciate that. Talk to these folks. You could look them up on LinkedIn and find out, without the professors here, what they really think. I think it will be pretty much in line with what they already said, but thanks everybody, and really appreciate you coming. If you have other questions, please reach out to myself or Dr. Briskin. If you have to drop off, certainly understand that. And then we'll just answer, I think that's the last question we have about the thesis guidelines.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.